call to order the legislative session 2017-12 for May 22nd, 2017 for the Wicomico County Council. Those that like to stand and join us in the Lord's Prayer and Pledge of Allegiance, please do.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, power, and glory forever. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Morning, Ms. Hurley.
Good morning, Council President, County Council members, ladies and gentlemen. We have Resolution Number 77, 2017, to authorize the county executive to acquire 3.5 acres of land, more or less, in a 16-acre pond located east of Mardella, known as 9765 Barron Creek Road. This is on tax map number 9, parcel 66, and it is to be used for the restoration of Barron Creek Road. And we have Mr. Weston Young, Assistant Director of Administration here.
Morning, Wes. How are you? Good morning.
Hey, good morning. I also have with me Dallas Baker, the Director of Public Works.
Mr. Baker. Good morning.
So as was stated, this is to authorize the county executive to acquire, purchase the property that will allow us to restore Barron Creek Road. And the intention is to use WIP monies that we have currently to purchase said property. We would subdivide off the house, and whatever we get for the house sale, we would replenish said WIP monies. And we are looking to use the 16-acre pond bottom for a watershed cleaning project. There's over 10,800 acres that drain to that point. It's part of the reason why the dam failed. And we would hope to try to treat that drainage area as much as possible. Dallas can talk about some of the next steps after the purchase, but gladly entertain any questions.
Did you say we're going to auction off the house?
Yes, or however we surplus,
Sell it.
sell it.
Sell it. Okay.
You know, I noticed when we were on site, there's basically a stream through the pond bottom. And the pond bottom is rather shallow, and if you look at it, it doesn't really hold that much water for the amount of drainage area that it's supposedly responsible for. Is there any plans on dredging any of that before we build the dam and fill it back up? It seems to me like it'd be a lot more efficient if we did that.
I think when it gets designed, that's where any sort of dredging or I'll say any adjustments
Yeah.
made, we would likely plant vegetation out there to help stabilize it a bit better. We need to make sure whatever we do that we are able to successfully pass the amount of water that comes to that location underneath the road.
I just want to express my appreciation to the county executive for moving forward with this. It's good to see. I know there was a lot of a lot of concern up there about this road being rebuilt, so I'm very happy to see this. I guess you said Dallas could talk about the timeline. I mean, so we get this and it's finalized within the next few weeks. When does the road start being rebuilt?
Yeah, so what we've got is it's a two-pronged approach. There's the road reconstruction, and then there's the WIP project. We're looking to one of our on-call consultants. We have a meeting with them next Thursday on site to go over a scope of work, cost estimate, and schedule for the design and permitting of the road reconstruction. As you know, there's a lot of material out there that needs to get rebuilt. There'll also be some geotechnical work trying to figure out how far back do we need to take the existing road where it's caved in to rebuild further back. I suspect the design process is probably going to design and permitting process is gonna take probably about 6 to 9 months, simply because of, you know, there are adjacent wetlands, there's also, dealing with dam safety, or whatever, you know, means go back into, for passing that water through. So I would think 6 to 9 months probably is a good estimate for coming up with the design for the project, and then potentially 9 months to a year to actually construct the road itself.
And what's the pond bed gonna look like? What are the plans there? Is there gonna be water there? Is it plans to be a stream?
So that's the second part, and we're gonna be working with, where we hope to work with the Center for Watershed Protection to come up with a study that says, okay, what is the best way we can use the pond bottom? In other words, what are we getting our most bang for our buck to minimize how much money we're putting into it, but also get the most WIP credit out of there? You know, one possibility might be that, hey, Mother Nature's taken its course and that would get us the best result, but there's also, we need to look at, you know, are the plants that are growing out there now, are they optimal? Is there better plants that we can put out there that might take up the nutrients faster or a larger rate? So that's the things we're gonna be looking to the consultant to say, hey, look, you know, this is where you should be going to maximize that land and that credit.
And will that come back before us, before you do anything, or is that solely under your authority?
We can certainly brief the council. I don't
Okay.
have any problem doing that.
Okay, all right, I appreciate it.
John?
I assume this is emergency resolution, that it needs to be
I don't think
done?
it's being requested as an emergency resolution.
No, the contract of sale states that settlement is to occur on or before May 31st. So that's why we're approving this resolution today.
And so I assume that the intent is to have it done during this prior budget session, the 16-17 budget session, so it'll be in that last year's. Now, when you originally talked about purchasing this property, wasn't it the intention to do it with open space money? No. No? Okay.
That was, well, we were looking at open space money as an option. Open space money comes with strings, and this gives us a little more flexibility. My preliminary conversations with project, or I guess the program Open Space, was that they said, we'll keep the house. And I couldn't quite understand why, but this gives us more freedom with the property.
Okay, and also, is there enough WIP funds to pay the entire cost of this?
Yes, I don't know the
No.
exact amount we have in there at the moment. Well, let me take a step back. To purchase the property, yes. To fully build it out,
Right.
we don't know yet. So to then go back to Councilman Kilmer's question, it could be coming back to you in the form of a specific capital project.
Sure.
Depending on what the cost will be. But personally, I don't think we would present anything if it didn't have a really high impact or efficiency when it came to cost per pound of nutrients removed.
Okay.
The road reconstruction, as you recall, is in the capital improvement plan, and the funding is $500,000, and that funding is proposed to be proceeds from the bond sale. So funding isn't going to be available until we go to market in the fall and sell bonds.
Okay.
Had we made an arrangement with with the state of Maryland to help pay for some of these costs? I thought initially they were very much, when we met with them out at the location that day, I thought that they had suggested that they'd be able to help with some of the funding.
I know the program Open Space was one. The federal money, the NRCS, they said it didn't quite apply for their pots of money. However, from a permitting standpoint, that's where they can help us in terms of expediting the permits, because they know it's a needed project. So the program Open Space was the main source of funds, and we're proposing to go with the WIP funds.
Do they do they create the distinction between the pond and the house to say that maybe that would qualify for open space, if that was a greater benefit to us than the WIP program?
You know, I'm not certain. You know, I think our intention is, again, to subdivide the house and not be in that business, just focus on what we need for the road and the pond bottom. But the program open space, I guess where it's all tied in one parcel at the moment, we would have to subdivide it ahead of time, possibly. I'm not certain how we would handle that.
And I don't know either. I know what you're saying. They may see it all as one piece, but I didn't know if the idea would be to approach them and say, look, let's use open space for just the pond portion of this, and, you know, because I don't know either the benefit to the county as to which would be more benefit, whether it be open space funding or whether it would be whatever benefit we get from the WIP program.
So I was under the impression that this was not going to be considered a dam anymore because it's basically just a culvert pipe. So would dam safety really come into play anymore? At what point do they relinquish their hold over that piece of land?
Somewhere between where it is now and having culverts underneath of it, it no longer meets dam safety. They usually have a threshold on how much water is backed up on a certain storm event, and at what point they'll view the road as an embankment.
Okay.
So if we went with too small of a pipe, they would likely view it as a dam, and we would have to then rebuild it to dam safety standards. And that would probably mean excavating the entire road as it exists, an embankment now, and then coming back in with a clay core or some sort of impermeable barrier. So with the adequately sized pipes, they'll view it just like any other road we have that has a culvert running stream crossing.
Yep.
Any other questions? Did I neglect to entertain a motion to approve this resolution, Mr. Hall?
I don't think we did.
Entertain a motion to approve Resolution 77, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, discussion. Could you please repeat everything? Any other questions, comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of Resolution 77, 2017, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried, resolution passes. I'd also like to thank Senator Addie Eckert for the great work she did moving this project forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next item on the agenda is public comments. If you have any public comments, come to the podium, please. State your comments, concerns. Seeing none, that concludes public comments. Council comments?
I just
Councilman Hall.
have one thing. The county ran a successful air show at the airport this past Sunday, and there were well over 1,000 people there, and it was well represented. It was a little windy for airplanes to fly in, but still, I would say that we probably had 50 to 75 airplanes that were in that day, and it was great to see the public turn out and support a project like this, and hopefully we can continue to do it.
Thank you. Any other council comments? Yeah, I was there as well. It was a really nice event. I'd like to congratulate Dawn Beach for excellent work that she did in putting all of that together. No small task. And I'd say there were, what would the number be? 700 at least?
They said the newspaper, from qualified people who are good at judging crowds, said there were 1,000 people there, but I would estimate there were probably 1,500 people
Yeah,
throughout
that was
the
a lot.
day at least.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a good event. That being said, entertain a motion to adjourn so we can go into open work session.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned. First item on the open work session is a budget recap session here.
John,
Yes.
could I go off script a little bit here? I know that Wayne and I had been talking a little bit about an issue with the library, about getting some money from the state and things like that. Could he, I think he mentioned to me that the council may want to know about this, so could he do that real quick? I don't know if he's going to stay for the entire budget recap session or not, but it's just sending emails back and forth. I think it'd be easier probably just to talk about it while we're here.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Yes, we have a situation where the library applied for a state grant, sizable grant, it's on the order of, I think, $360,000. The county match is, I think, 16%. The county match is in the budget, but this grant is a grant where the state reimburses the county once the work has been completed, invoiced, and paid for. So it's a reimbursable grant. That money is not in the budget. The state would reimburse us, they said, any time frame between 3 and 4 weeks once they receive appropriate invoices. So we're in a position where, in order to take advantage of this grant, we've got to forward fund the state's portion out of reserves. When we receive the reimbursement back, it of course goes back into our reserve account. I wasn't quite sure what appropriate action needed to be taken, but I did want council to be aware of it, and I wanted council to be comfortable with the fact that if we proceeded with this project, that we would be proceeding on the basis of forward funding and receiving the money back from the state.
What are they gonna do with the money?
Oh, it's to replace, well, there are a number of projects. There's a chiller project, there's a restroom project, and there's replacement of the carpeting.
So it's an infrastructure. Okay.
It's infrastructure. And, you know, they're all projects that we believe need to be undertaken. I can provide you the details on that if you'd like to see them. But I didn't want to see the county forward funding this project, even though we would receive the money back quickly without council being aware that that's what we were proposing to do. And quite honestly, I'm not sure that any formal action has to be taken. It's a little bit of an odd situation.
Well, if it needed to be done at the library, then why didn't they submit it in the budget?
It wasn't.
Well, the county's portion of the project, county share, the 16% share is in the county's
That's
budget.
16%,
The library financial people weren't aware that this grant behaves differently than most of our state grants.
So in
Most of
order
our
to
state
get the
grants,
grant,
we get the money.
We pretty much pay 100% minus the
Exactly.
16 when we get
Exactly.
reimbursed.
Exactly. So it's a bit of an odd situation. I think the project is important. I would hate to see the county walk away from that amount of state aid. But again, I wanted you to be aware of it before we took any action.
We're already forwarding money for the school board. How long will this take to get this fund?
30 days.
30 days?
Yeah, once the work is done, Larry.
Yeah.
It's, I think start to finish, probably a period of about 2 months is my guess.
There's nothing really that involves this budget today, right?
No. No, I mean, it's really not a budgetary item, it's a cash flow item.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's, kind of falls between the cracks, if you will.
Well, if something has to be done, we should do it.
Well, I mean, you know, I'd known about this from being on the library board, and I'd emailed Wayne, and Wayne said, well, I'd like the council to know, and I said, well, we're having the meeting Monday,
Right.
could we talk about it then instead of sending emails, and it's probably just more efficient, so,
Right.
again, I appreciate you letting us know about it, and so.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. So what we want to do as far as council is concerned is get some idea of where we are with the budget as a whole. If there are any particular areas that council wanted to re-review. Also, there's concern on councils as far as any particular departments that you would want to see reductions made. Where would we want to start? Do you want to go through each item in the budget independently? Starting from the page 1, you go through it, or how do, you know, what's?
I mean, I think there were a couple areas where I think there was agreement, you know, between, you know, when we were talking, you know, like, in economic development, there was the 18,380 that I don't think was needed. You know, we could, and I would move that we would strike that from the budget.
You're saying from economic development?
Yeah, the, what tab is that?
What page?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I didn't have it written down. All right. 38.
I've got it on 76, page 76 in your PDF file,
Yeah, tab 38
tab 38.
yeah. The transfer to local match fund 67, in the amount of 18,380.
Any discussion on this particular item? Okay, that would be one to consider. We could go back to the very first page, which would be the county council items that we need to strike from the county council's budget. I could take a guess.
I guess it was a car for county,
Yeah.
county council car. It's 18,500. And then we had what, the Clean Chesapeake Coalition? That
Other
was
community-
30,000, correct? Right.
And rural Maryland was 5.
Two of them.
Yeah,
So that was 30 complete,
yeah,
25.
25 each.
Did we strike those last year?
No,
We discussed it though.
we kept them last year. Let's go, we'll go one at a time and try to hit it. Any other discussion from the council? The second department to follow is Circuit Court. Then we have the Orphans Court, State's Attorney's Office, we have Executive Administration, Community Promotion,
Yeah, that's where the Clean Chesapeake dues and the Rural Counties Coalition dues, so that's 30 total.
Was it 30 or 25?
25 for Clean
25
Chesapeake and 5 for rural counties.
So it is 30.
And is there consensus to do that, or, I mean, are we just writing everything down and then gonna vote on them one?
we can write it down. I honestly, I'm in favor of it as well, but, you know,
Do it
I don't know how the rest of
Write
the
it
council
down and
feels.
discuss it
We
later.
could discuss it now. I mean,
All right.
is everybody okay with this?
Cutting it? Yeah.
I am, sorry, I'm trying to get to the detailed report.
What?
It's, 6. 6.
Okay,
Or do we wanna, or do you wanna suggest these and then we think about them and come back later? Is that, I mean,
Well,
I have no problem discussing it now if you want
I
to.
I think it's a good idea to go ahead and discuss them
Yeah.
now, and then when we have the next council meeting, we can go ahead and just bring them up and vote on them at that time. right? Wouldn't that be the appropriate way to do it?
That's what I'd say let's go ahead and discuss it now,
okay.
yeah. But it appears as if everybody's on board with making those cuts. Okay. The next item, elections. Next item is finance. One thing that comes up in finance, which I think was probably part of a broader discussion in all departments, is the salaries listed in promotions, where there's a line item for 11,820. And we recognize that we can't cut line items, but we can certainly make cuts to the individual departments that may have line items where we'd like to see a cut made. So how it's implemented is not going to be up to us. But again, this has the salaries, promotions notation on it. And as of today, there are about over $1,000 worth of line items in 6 different departments, and there may be more, but right now.
100,000.
What did I say?
1,000.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, 100,000. Thanks. There's almost $107,000 worth of monies listed for this. I mean, I personally wasn't convinced that this is something that needs to be in there. I think it may give sort of a false impression of what the true expenses are in running the county. So the bigger question would be, from the council, from what we've discussed on the promotions line item in salaries in six different departments, maybe 7, what's your take on this as far as whether you think it needs to be in the budget or not?
We got a list with all of them, all the ones where their departments.
Right.
With that happening. I say we should, if we're making a list of things that are possible to cut at the next one, I'd say we should put that on there and
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it inflates the budget. I just do.
I guess,
I don't quite understand if these are promotions that are going to happen during the budget year. How do you, and not to get into micromanaging, how do you show these increases in the budget without actually physically putting them in the budget? And how can you cut them?
I thought there were promotions that happened past fiscal.
No, they're
Savings.
savings. So it's where somebody was employed at a higher salary, they left, somebody was brought in at a lower salary. It's that difference between the two that's still budgeted here.
That occurred in the current fiscal year.
Current
That's right.
fiscal year. Okay.
I guess along the same lines, if you go to the vacant funded positions that we had, I found kind of disturbing is we're showing $1,191,983 in the positions that are open and not filled. And according to our HR director, when we were up here last week, this is kind of a reoccurring thing that's basically all the time, that we're sitting there with that kind of monies in the county budget that's not being utilized. And if you look at all the different departments, I see the one department, Department of Corrections, which has probably got the most offerings of jobs out there. And, but a lot of the others, it's just one department or the other. And one that's particularly interesting is the Solid Waste Division that has a part-time job for $68,000. I don't know just exactly what that's all about, but there could possibly be some real savings there, to maybe cut that in half due to the fact that it is a rolling occurrence all the time. So that would be, a good chance to do about $500,000 or $600,000.
I think you got Wayne worked out.
I suppose I would, but anyway.
No, you have vacancies in the county at any given point in time, and those vacancies are positions that are required. They're in your position control log. If you cut funding for those, you're cutting positions that are needed to operate the county. You've got 10 correctional officers that are needed right now. George is trying to hire those officers. Why would you want to cut that funding from his budget?
I didn't say I wanted to cut that funding from his budget. I brought that out particularly that we might not want to bother that, okay?
Yeah, but
Also,
these 37 vacancies, we've got 600 employees, 37 vacancies at any given time when we submit the budget is normal turnover.
And and also, see that, if you go to our website, other than the Department of Corrections officers, as far as full-time jobs, there's only, and all of these are full-time except for that one, there's only five job opportunities on the website, so apparently they're not even advertising for these people. So my statement is, we're looking at $1,191,000. Our Human Resources Director said that this is this is always occurring. So it's not like we're gonna fill all these positions tomorrow.
But
Because
if
we're not even advertising for most of these positions, because our website says, there's 5 people on there, so.
I don't know that that's an accurate statement, but if you want to begin to cut vacant positions, I think you need to sit down with the department head who's involved and understand from that department head why that position is currently vacant and what it would mean to the operation of that department if you defund it.
Since the department head's not here, can you answer why there are 10 vacancies in the Department of Corrections?
Yeah, because we can't attract qualified people and get them through the academy. And our hiring rate is probably below market, which takes me back to the discussion that we had at the last council work session, that being that a comprehensive review of the county's salary structure is probably in order.
How long have those positions been vacant?
It's been a rolling average. Larry, we get up to speed and then we lose officers. One of the things that happens is that we lose officers to other entities.
And, well, yeah, I understand that.
You
and
get,
then we
you get people
discussed
trained, they get
reasons.
some experience, and, we've got, 3 jurisdictions, Sussex, Worcester,
State.
Somerset, and ECI. We get people trained, and once they're trained and once they have some experience, they have a higher market value. It has been rather chronic in corrections nationally. The national average is about 20% vacancy. So we're not unique in that regard. It's a difficult profession. It has become even more difficult by virtue of the nature of the people being housed at corrections. It's quite different than it was even 10 years ago.
Well, hopefully
So-
with the overtime issue we discussed,
I think
hopefully
that's a
that'll
very good step in the
resolve
right
some of
direction.
that.
I think that's a very good step in the right direction. But again, because at the point in time that we submit a budget, we have 37 vacant positions, doesn't mean that those vacant positions aren't needed. I would
Yeah, I
submit to
don't
you,
think that's what Councilman Joe Holloway was discussing.
well, if you're defunding them, that's essentially indicating that they're not needed. We sit with every single department head. They justify every position that they have. That's why you get the position control analysis. And we didn't put forward any departments with positions that we didn't feel were needed to effectively operate that department.
That's almost $1.5 million just sitting there.
It's not sitting there. It's sitting there at a point in time. That's turnover. Turnover occurs every day in an organization this large, every day. So when you begin to defund positions that are in position control, that are authorized positions, that can have consequences that are not helpful.
I guess-
So if you're planning to do that, I think you need to talk to the department heads of the affected departments to understand exactly what you're doing when you defund those positions.
Maybe a way to look at this, and Mrs. Hurley, maybe you can help us. It might be helpful to look at the vacant positions that are currently in the budget in each department and see which departments consistently have openings, vacant positions opening year after year after year. If you have a department that's had openings, vacancies, 2 or 3 for 4 consecutive years, obviously, I think it needs to be an adjustment,
Okay, I can do some research.
if you don't mind. Would that help you?
Well, I think so. You know, if I'm looking at the government website here, I see an advertisement for a correctional officer, and I assume that's more than one, because they need more than one.
Right.
But then there's only 3 other full-time advertisements for jobs. So they're saying they've got 30-some openings. But, so anyway,
Okay.
that's,
It's a good point.
Okay.
that'll probably change tomorrow. That one.
Hey, John,
Yes, sir.
what if could we ask specifically about the part-time job that's vacant right now at Solid Waste? Yeah, the salary is 68,000 it says, but it's a part-time position.
Yeah, let me look into, I was trying to look into that as soon as it was mentioned.
You're saying that's solid waste?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a part-time position.
How much was it, Matt?
68,340.
What page is that on, Matt?
So this is, what it matches is page 3 in our budget. But I think on the salary spreadsheet, Steve, do you know what page it is?
These are not numbered.
Okay.
That's the only 60 I saw. Let's see.
Do you have on your screen?
No, I don't.
Is it
It's in
within,
the
I got,
spreadsheet with
what-
the salaries,
okay, what,
and that's where it actually gives the detail that says it's part-time.
okay.
Yeah, let me see if I can find that real quick.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any part-time position being.
He's got it here.
All right, no, we got it here. Vacant, let's see, part-time.
Why is it? It's super.
This spreadsheet's created by Human Resources, and I see the part-time's what throws people off. I would think at the time this was created, that was so this position, the superintendent of solid waste, was Mark Whitelock. He is now deputy director of public works, so I'm guessing this spreadsheet was filled out when he had moved from that position to his current role. Part-time should not be in there, because that position is not a part-time position. So I definitely see the concern there. Looking at what we submitted from a budget detail standpoint, we have the superintendent waste disposal. That's a full-time position that we've since filled with a gentleman by the name of David Candy.
So that
He
is
was in the crowd during the budget discussion with solid waste, but he didn't speak.
Okay.
So I think what we need is this explained, why, I don't know when this was generated, to be honest, and that's one of the issues with the Excel spreadsheets versus. Thank you.
so you're saying we don't have a part-time position for safety?
Correct,
no.
correct. No, I
Definitely not the superintendent.
I think we both panicked there briefly. The superintendent role is a full-time, important role, and I'm not certain why it says part-time.
You know, I guess that's why we're here.
Yes,
Find
no,
these things, yeah.
Weston, could it not be the fact that now he's moved to deputy director, it's split between roads and solid waste?
no, that's a separate account. Yeah, this is specifically, it's a spreadsheet issue is what I think it is. No, but that's a good catch.
And that position's been vacant how long?
It's filled right now.
Yeah, it's not been.
So how long?
Well, Mark,
I bet it wasn't, I'm guessing it wasn't vacant but a week, but I wasn't involved with that.
Okay.
So what position is Mark in now? I'm sorry.
Mark's,
Yeah.
Mark's Deputy Director of Public Works.
Public Works.
Yeah, Dave Candy is Superintendent of Solid Waste.
When John Redland retired.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. The next item, going through the budget by departments is a public accountant. That, I believe that we left off with finance. I didn't know if there was anybody else that had any questions on finance. If not, public accountant. Purchasing. Law. What was the answer? I can't remember on the hospitalization and unemployment. Was that left over from Mr. Baker's tenure? Is that correct? And the postage and dues subscriptions, I guess? Just other items that,
I haven't run that to the ground yet, John.
total contractual services, budgeted $312,492. Okay. Human resources? Planning and zoning? I guess, capital cars, 41,700. I'm sure we probably discussed this with Jack. Wayne, I'm assuming that, they're just purchasing new cars down there. I think Jack, didn't he clearly say that their cars were very old, and, yeah, that's right, yeah, because they were driving around some pretty young, yeah. Yeah, I remember that, yeah,
The
okay.
budget detail should explain the specific vehicle.
Yeah, it's kind of split up in this, and it makes it kind of confusing, because you got two different windows, you have to keep going back and forth if you want to follow. General services? Thanks, Weston. IT?
Mr. President,
Yes.
I noticed the IT department is requesting a new position this year. My question would be, should there be separate legislation, separate from the budget itself? I mean, I know that's not a requirement, but for transparency, we have done it that way in the past.
An entirely new position?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought we always established that, through resolution, isn't that correct?
We've done it
Or-
both ways. It can be done through the budget process, but for transparency, I believe that it's been discussed that it should be separate legislation.
Okay. Does that come through as a bill or as a resolution?
A bill, legislative bill.
Yeah, I think I think we should do that. I think so. Okay, all right. Anything else, on IT? Liquor License Board? Sheriff's Department?
The sheriff's department or task force?
Sheriff's Department first.
I just got a problem with those 15 cars.
You have what now?
There were 15 cars.
Okay.
I mean, you just got 10, and they're not all on the road. It took them a while to get them on the road. Now they're asking another 15. How long will it take them to get on the road?
What do you think? What number are you thinking then?
Give them 10 like they asked for last time.
You do
You said
5,
10?
and then 5 next year?
They're about, I think it comes out to about 55,000 a car with the car and the equipment.
maintenance.
And I agree with Ernie there, you know, it took them a while to get them on the road. Apparently, they still have one that wasn't on the road the other week when they were in, right? And, would that be 200, something out, 275,000 or something like that?
The suggestion was to cut it by how many cars, how many vehicles?
5.
5 vehicles. I'd say what we do is contact the sheriff's office and ask them what the total cost would be associated with 5 vehicles. Because like you said, it's not just the vehicles, it's all the upgrades they have to do when the vehicle comes in.
What's in the budget?
It's in the budget. It's $55,000.
Yeah, because they have a unit cost and then all the vault and the prep work, and it's all, I mean, you know,
Or if you take,
budget detail's pretty good.
if
All right.
you take the total number and divide it by 15, it comes out to 55,000.
Okay. Okay, so
I can't do the math quick enough.
I'm doing it right. Trying to
Councilman Davis, did you ever look to find out why the cars are not in service yet?
They said they didn't have the electronics, the equipment to go inside of them in there yet.
It takes time. It takes time to get those ready. It's a lot to it.
Yeah.
A lot to put in one of those cars together, the computers and the wiring and all that.
I know some of the other agencies have expressed in the past that it sometimes takes a year to get a vehicle in service. They have so much that has to be done to it.
Okay, so that's 5 cars, 275,000.
Maybe. We'd have to double check the math, but that's probably
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Definitely,
double check my math.
definitely double check that. Okay, anything else in reference to the sheriff's department? And they have sent over the paperwork for us to, for resolution and changing that position.
They have, that will be introduced hopefully at the next council meeting.
Okay. The Narcotics Task Force. Wayne, that's the one where we had the question on the 500,000 on the capital building improvement. And their comment was the fact that it would be purchased with seized funds, and whether or not the seized funds should be reflected in the revenue for the county as well.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and check the budget detail, John, but from my standpoint, and I've discussed this with Mr. Wilbur, seized funds should really come in to the general fund and then be appropriated. It's almost the same, if you will, as a grant. The funding comes in, council then approves the appropriation of funds for whatever the particular use is. I will double check to see whether or not that funding, if you will, is up on the revenue side. It should be, but let me double check that to be sure
Okay.
that it is.
Yeah.
But it should go through the appropriation process.
I guess the question would be too, so that we don't have an overinflated budget in case it isn't, if we were to strike it here, and then, I'm not quite sure of what the planning process is, they're architectural engineering, I'm not sure what phases this is even gonna fall in, whether it's 6 months from now or 2 months from now, whether it's something that we couldn't do incrementally through contingency.
What I have to do is backtrack where that $500,000 resides right now.
Yeah, if it's, you're right, if it's in reserve, if it's in the revenue side somewhere,
If it's in the revenue side, then it's net neutral on the
okay,
budget.
so we'll just put a earmark on it
We'll
right
just
now.
put an earmark on it, and I'll
Okay. Thanks.
I'll backtrack that for you to determine whether or not it is in the intergovernmental transfer side of revenue.
Yeah.
Was that in the CIP? I don't recall it, but I don't know the detail. Okay.
No, what was in the CIP,
Was-
Mark, is the new proposed public safety building.
This is separate, yeah.
Two completely different things, yeah.
Thanks,
So
Wade.
is this 500,000 just reflect Wicomico County's share of this building, or is this you know, the entire building, because the task force is a joint
It's a joint
venture
task
between
force,
the
right?
state and the county. So
Correct.
are we carrying the burden of building this all through the county,
No,
even though it's shared money?
No, the way that's structured, Matt, is that Wicomico County is the lead agency.
Okay.
So as the lead agency, we handle the financial administration. I will go back to Sheriff Lewis, and I'll get those details as well. My understanding was it was the complete project.
Okay.
And
The
that
500,000.
and the funding is simply, we're the conduit,
Okay.
if you will, for the funding, because we're the lead agency.
Thanks.
Yeah, from what I might know about it, my feeling is that they felt it wasn't necessarily a Wicomico County expense because they were going to reimburse it through seized funds.
Right.
Which involves all departments as a whole.
Yep.
Depending on how it's seized.
Yeah, I'd just like to see that
Yeah, it's-
half of the
Yeah, it's
funds.
good, yeah.
Should still go through the appropriation process.
Good question.
So, it's our land. They're gonna put the
It is
building-
our land.
Okay. Who owns the building in the end?
The building would revert to the county if in fact it were no longer used at some point in time.
Wayne, let me just go real quick while you're there. In the same line item, or in the same area, they do have here use of prior year fund balance, $676,000. $676,000. I'm wondering if that's maybe where part of that 500 is?
Let me just run that whole
Okay.
thing down for you, Joe.
Okay. Let me check one thing real quick. Okay. After the narcotics task force, we have Salisbury Fire Ambulance. Any questions from anybody on this?
I think this is where the adjustment needs to come in for the workers' compensation. If you
There
recall.
was discussion.
Oh, this, yeah,
Yes, well,
okay.
yeah. Yeah,
All
I mean,
right.
again, I think my preference would be, if it's needed, contingency, not make an adjustment to the budget. So,
Well, the next item after Salisbury is the volunteer.
yeah, it's the same tab.
That's the next
so,
item on here.
yeah.
How are we planning to address that with the volunteer?
Workers' comp, your experience is always trailing. So you don't know what your actual billing is gonna be until you're in that current year. I would say that if what council is proposing is by fourth quarter, we get billed quarterly. If by fourth quarter, we need that additional funding, that we would come back to you and request it as a transfer out of contingency.
Wayne, you were also supposed to look into seeing if any of the volunteers and the workers' comp payments had been duplicated because
Correct.
they are in different departments.
We have to scrub that. I can't tell you, Larry, with certainty that that isn't the case. We just have to take a close look at, and I know that Michelle is doing that. She's looking at the volunteer roles, but we haven't gotten completely through that process, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Corrections? Emergency services? Protection of animals? Public Works?
I guess a couple things. Well, one thing is the creek watchers of $5,000. There was really no plans on just exactly what the money was going for until they get that figured out. We'll have to come back next year if it's more thought out.
Okay. Anything else on Public Works?
Do we want a consensus on that? What are we going
I think we're just listing and listing
Just
right
listing
now.
the items
Right.
we'll decide.
You don't agree with me, John?
Pardon?
Anything's open for discussion, John. John, anything's open for
I
discussion.
think we've already discussed it, so,
He's ready for a vote.
I don't know how many times you can discuss it, but it doesn't change.
Yeah, I don't think we're deciding anything today. I think that is,
Fruitland Water and Sewer. I have a question on Fruitland Water and Sewer. Matt, you might know this, because I know you and I had a discussion about this a few months ago. Was there an initial payback that the homeowners were required to make?
Well, it wasn't upfront or
From the
anything,
initial
but
build-out?
it's attached to their tax bill.
Yeah, right now it's $312, and as more people connect, and we've had several properties ask to connect, that will bring that overall burden down.
Great, thanks.
Those are properties that are not in the initial development, right? Just
That were not in the original
Plan.
boundary.
Mosquito control.
yeah, I did notice, replacing $30,000 for a new four-wheel drive truck to replace a 2007 Ranger. 2007 doesn't seem too old. How many miles are on? I mean, mosquito trucks they get used 3-4 months out of the year, or I guess Weston.
Question, grab a mic question. Thanks.
Yes, as Wayne was saying, tough miles. We looked into that this morning. I know we're putting together a vehicle list for you all. The 2007 truck that Mosquito Control is proposing to replace has over 90,000 miles on it, and they say they've had some engine issues with it. The way it was explained to me is it's a lot of just slow driving, and it's I guess the environment it goes through, but they're requesting that to be replaced.
Do we, I guess since you're here,
Sure.
last year we spent $70,000, over $70,000 on trucks, I guess?
Countywide or mosquito?
Mosquito control.
Mosquito
It's
control.
listed, and I don't mean to,
Yeah, they
You're not expected to know
Aren't
that.
those the Colorados? You keep, and they got 3 of them. So that was 3 Colorados last year, and we've been really happy with how they've operated.
Were they four-wheel drive?
I believe so. Yeah, in a lot of cases where they go to spray at night, they require 4-wheel drive.
So there's the 3 trucks from last year.
Yes.
Is this the oldest? I guess how many trucks do you have in total there?
I'm not certain with I don't know if we've sent you the spreadsheet or not on the county vehicles, but I could answer that if I had the spreadsheet.
So this truck, if they just use it 3 or 4 months a year to spray for mosquitoes, how long does that program last every summer?
I may have to defer to somebody else. I just looked
Alright,
into it from the
that's
vehicle
fine.
standpoint.
Pardon me?
Yeah.
Of course. Makes sense.
Why is it Bluetooth GPS enabled? Are all the county trucks getting GPS now?
I'm not certain. It depends what they're for. I'll say from my knowledge of Public Works, unless it comes stock in the vehicle, we're not going out and specifically getting it, but we're not driving all over
Well, it was
creation.
mentioned, that's why I asked it.
Yeah,
Looked like there
understood,
was something
understood.
special.
Are you talking about the mosquito trucks, Larry?
Yeah.
It's to operate the sprayer.
Oh,
Certain properties,
yes.
certain properties get sprayed. There are people who opt out who don't want their property sprayed, so that Bluetooth talks to the sprayer and turns it on and off.
Oh, really?
And he can go back and show where he sprayed and where he
Yeah.
didn't. I remember that now. Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know, do we want to put that on the list tentatively and wait for more answers, or?
Sure. Can do that.
What was the total on that?
30. Gypsy moth control?
We gotta make sure that, that GPS knows where all the councilmen's houses are, and, yeah.
Block them out.
There'll be a lot of mosquitoes on Shavix Road here, so, yeah.
Now, that's where we grow them. They grow 'em down there. That's the nature conservatory.
The next item is gypsy moth control. Board of Education.
I think we should revisit Board of Ed once we're through with the cuts. Just see what our total is and see if it can apply to any one-time funding. Recommendation.
All right. Anybody else? Community college? Public library? Tri-County Council, short transit?
Let's see, they're looking at $52,000 more this year, and it's 52. Move it down, yeah, 52 more thousand, an additional 52,000. Can I have an explanation of what that's for?
They're flat funded for last year.
383?
Yeah, it said, yeah, grants operating 383 to,
Am I reading that wrong?
What's that?
Said cut to 383, 464, and it's going to 436. Am I reading that wrong?
I think they're flat funded in total for their
Flat funded,
total operating expense, but the grants operating went up.
right.
well, last year they had capital money, it looks like. I guess they spent that, and so now they're getting that money folded into operating? I mean, because operating, grants operating goes up by basically the amount that their capital grant was
Right.
last year.
Yeah.
Tri-County operating last year, the budget was 445,809, this year it's 446.
Well, if you look up at the detail, there's the three different grants, the operating, the capital, and the legislative.
Yeah.
And the operating last year was only 383, and this year it's 436.
They're taking a prior year capital funding, and they're now subsidizing salaries with that
Do you want to see this page?
from the prior
I don't know
year.
if you have the same one.
I can give them mine.
Okay.
While they're discussing that, the $10,000 for grants and legislative, is it my understanding that's for the Taste of the Eastern Shore party that they have every year? Is that what that's for?
We met with them, we approved flat funding for last year.
So they met with them and they
The
approved.
$10,000 grant for, it says legislative
It's on the page.
liaison or whatever.
It's for the legislative liaison support.
And that's the
I think that's the Taste of the Eastern Shore.
Taste of the Eastern Shore. Yeah, and we're giving 10 of that to them. Yeah. So I wasn't wrong that it's in there. It is in there, right?
Yeah, it's right there.
That's the way we were reading it. Also, while you're checking, Wayne, find it last time they raised bus fares. If you would. I think it's been a while. Yeah.
What is it, $6 one way now? I remember it was $1.
I don't recall the details.
It depends on who you are, how much it costs. I'm seriously, there's.
Well, we had a meeting the other night, and I asked Mike, and he said $6 because they were talking about business was picking up right now because they're transporting more people to Ocean City for summer jobs. And I asked how much, and for that particular transport, it was $6 each way, which is actually pretty cheap for somebody.
I guess, getting back, we've made a note of your 10,000. Mark, what's your concern over the capital,
Well,
the capital expenses?
I mean,
I see what you're saying. You have a capital expense one year,
yeah.
and then you absorb that into your operating the next year.
Yeah, I mean, well, when you said it was flat funded, it was just because they had 52,000 last year, so.
Let me go into the detail of the day submitted,
Okay.
and I'll get that back.
Okay.
I understand what you're looking at.
Yeah.
Um,
And we still have time to, if we will need to bring any of these people in independently to talk to them, we still have time to do that.
I'll try to track that down for you today.
Say for right now, we make a note
Yes.
just of the $52,345,000 difference.
Okay. Public health? Extension services? Community access channel? Office of Economic Development?
Is that 18,380, is that?
We have the 18,380 on the list. Okay. Of course, we've, pensions and retirement is, what is? Hospital and disability, work comp, liability insurance, debt retirement, social services, contingency transfer reserves.
I noticed on that, there's the 225 transfer to the airport. And I know Wayne had talked something about possibly doing that as a loan. I mean, I know we gave some money, as I believe as a grant in this fiscal year to the airport. 225, the same thing.
Repeated that same capital grant or capital loan, if you will, because there's still a lot of work to be done.
All right. You know, and I've expressed in the past, I'd like the airport to be self-sufficient. You know, I mean, we're doing this and we're doing the fire, that's another 300,000, taxpayer support to the airport. You know, I imagine my colleague to the left would object strenuously if I wanted to cut that from the budget. I may suggest that anyway, and we can debate that, but, that or a loan, things along those lines, I feel a lot more comfortable with. But if you want to cut it, I'm okay with that too.
Was the money spent that was
It's in the
given last year?
process, it's in the process of being spent.
So it's not been spent yet? So-
Not all of it, no. But if you were to structure it, as a loan, I think that's entirely appropriate. The issue that the airport has is that if we want to make up for lost time, if you will, with regard to needed infrastructure improvements out there, the current operation doesn't generate enough revenue to accomplish that. So someone has to forward fund it. And you can either do it on the basis of a grant, or if you're not comfortable with the grant, we can do it on the basis of a loan.
I guess, my concern is we spend all this money and then we don't, just because we spend it doesn't mean there's any results that are guaranteed to happen. So we spend this money, we spend and spend and spend, and then at the end of the day, we're in the same situation we would have been if we wouldn't have spent it. And so, that's kind of my concern, is that when it's structured as being more self-sufficient, you're spending much more targeted at generating results, whereas here, where the taxpayers can pick up 225 or 500 next year, it's 225 is not, necessarily tied to anything. It's just whatever the taxpayers can afford. So, And again, I don't know that we can produce results the first year, but it would be nice to have something to show for what we're spending this fiscal year. So it's just a general comment.
If it were restructured as a loan, would it fall anywhere else in the budget? Would it still be in this category?
I think it would still be shown, I think the appropriation would still go to the airport, but we would book it as a receivable.
Okay.
It would show up in the balance sheet of both the airport as an enterprise and the county's general fund as a receivable from the airport to be paid at some point in time.
So we then, yeah,
It's net neutral, the difference
Right.
being that
Right.
you've got the future prospect of recovering that money once the airport has reached a point where it can generate sufficient funds. I mean, the issue with the airport, quite frankly, is that for the better part of 4 decades, it's been allowed to deteriorate. We can either allow that to continue, or we can get aggressive, or more aggressive, and try to develop the campus. I think that's an appropriate course of action.
Any other questions? We'll just make a note of it
Yeah,
for your benefit.
Make a note of it all. I don't know, it'll be successful, but we can make a note of it.
What about the flat contingency reserve for simplicity? Is that, I like that description. I like the description, using simplicity in the budget.
That amount of contingency funding has been in place for probably as long as I've been here. It's been
Okay.
about $750,000 a year. This is really the first year that we've utilized a substantial portion of contingency, and that was because of some pretty unique circumstances. I don't feel I could make a persuasive argument that to increase the allotment.
How much
to
did you
contingency.
use this year? Do you remember?
We have 329,000 left, but on the next council agenda, you will see that we'll be coming forward with the request for an additional 212 for Warwick Community College to close that gap so that their reserve fund stays intact, because it's rather low at this point in time.
So you're close to using up the,
We're close to using, for the first time, at least in my tenure, a significant portion of the contingency account.
so if it were reduced down to $500,000, would that make you uncomfortable, or?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it would, yeah,
okay.
yeah. It would.
With the revenues as high as they are, and the increase in the budget as much as it is this year, why would we be eating away at the contingency so much?
I'm not following you.
Well, I would assume that the revenues would be coming in. on
You have
some-
to appropriate revenue. I can only utilize the revenue that's been appropriated.
I'm just curious as to why the contingency would be going down as much as it is.
I'm not following. When you approve the budget, the revenue that if we're garnering more in the way of property taxes, we're garnering more in the way of income taxes
Right.
than is appropriated in the 2017 budget, I have no authority to spend that money.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, a lot of what's being discussed is the savings that have been ongoing within the county, not so much the increases of income taxes or income from property taxes, but a lot of what's being touted is the cost savings through county departments.
Well, we've had a combination of cost savings, but we've also had much more vibrant revenue than was anticipated, particularly with regard to income taxes.
Well, to clarify, so when the county saves money in the prior fiscal year, the end of the year, you've not spent it all and you get more revenue, that goes into kind of
Goes
the
into reserves.
reserves, and then that's what you want to spend now in terms of the prior year balance, is that right? The kind of money that was saved in the past or more revenue in the past, that's the part of the $9 million that is coming forward.
That's part of the $9 million, because we've built up our unassigned fund balance, which is what I'm gonna call your freeboard, if you will, to a point where it makes more sense to spend it down to some degree as opposed to borrowing. So again, that was a conscious decision. We decided, we had been borrowing on the order of $20 million a year. We decided in the CIP cycle that we would borrow $10 million this year and spend down fund balance by close to $10 million. I think it's $9.8 million. We just think that that's an appropriate fiscal tactic.
Any other questions? Next item on the list is roads, I believe. Next department, solid waste.
Under roads, was that there was 16,000 in there for a brush cutter attachment? Was that something that you said you didn't need?
Yeah, correct. We purchased that this year.
Okay, so that can be taken out of the budget. So there's, yeah, 16,000 for a great all brush cutter attachment, so.
Anything else? Solid waste?
I think there was, what, $500 in here for legal fees? I mean, I don't think that there was any need for that when we talked about that. And then I know there was some discussion about the $25,000 for uniforms. Whether or not those are needed or not, so.
There was also 25,000 in uniforms for roads.
Want that on the
Seems
list,
like a
Larry?
lot.
You want that on the list?
Why not? It's worth discussion.
Okay. What did you say before the uniforms, Mark?
It's 25,000.
No, you
No,
mentioned
before
something
that.
else.
You had said
Oh,
something.
the legal fees?
That was it, yeah.
$500.
Yeah.
Looking at every penny here, so.
Well, since it's a minimal amount, would we just like maybe defer that to some type of maybe a policy adjustment instead of because we're not going to be cutting a line item anyway.
I mean, it's up to Dusty, so.
I'll put it down just so we have it on the list. Okay, anything else?
Those were under solid waste, or those,
That was under solid waste.
waste,
Yeah. We have the airport.
oh, we did the airport.
We're going to do it again. Electrical board?
Can we go back to the airport real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Did we get an explanation under salaries? There's one line that says job class not found, $64,000.
Yeah, the Hollows are gonna get a bad reputation, so they go to those digging up stuff.
All right.
Maybe I can cross-reference it in the other detail and find out what that job is, but. Yeah. It just says a description it just says job class not found.
If you look at the number next to the title,
Yep.
that is the specific employee. And it seems that the operations maintenance supervisor and the job class not found, it may have been an extra entry. Because you have unique numbers for each employee. in
So
each
they have the
role.
same number?
Yeah, that,
Okay,
I don't know if that answers the question, but
That
that's
might.
at least something to.
yeah.
So we're gonna be looking at that? Is that right? or-
It looks like that clears it up. It's just like a duplication almost between those two lines. The one that says operations maintenance supervisor
Oh, I see what you're
has
saying.
0,
I see what you're
and
saying.
then John class not found has 64,800.
Okay,
Yeah, we changed titles out there, that's all.
Okay.
okay.
So, it's essentially, when Dawn came in, when Dawn Beach came in, we segregated duties out there between the airfield operation, if you will, and Dawn's duties as the airport manager. So essentially, the position that you're looking at was what was formerly the assistant airport manager.
Thanks.
So I guess that's why the notation is in there.
One more airport question if we're done with the employee. So to bring up the whole ARF issue,
Yeah.
it says training, external training for ARF, 65,800. Is that going to be needed with the new situation?
Yeah, that's the FAA required live fire
Yeah.
training that you have to do.
All right, so, but we've 300,000 also budgeted for salaries. So-
That's salaries.
Okay, so that, okay.
Yeah, the
so-
training has
okay.
always been segregated from
Okay. All right.
the cost of the people who would respond if there was an incident.
But do we need to do that training with the mechanics this year and pay for it, being we're gonna be changing, or in that 300,000? I think you said earlier, not today, but earlier, that you don't have a number nailed down exactly what it's gonna cost to put people out there, and
I have to look-
how much we're gonna get back from Piedmont
Right.
and all that, so.
Right.
Is that something that we need in the budget this year, that's 65?
FAA requires every 2 years we bring a plane in
Yeah.
for a live burn.
Yeah, so was that done last year?
No, it's not done, it was done 2 years ago. This will be the year that we have to do that
Okay.
again.
Right.
That's when some kind of university brings it in.
Yeah, I know about that, because I
Yeah.
was on the airport commission,
So
so.
that's almost
Right.
$20,000 for that one.
Have they been compliant? Because there was some discussion that they hadn't done the training in more than 2 years.
No, we're compliant. I don't know who
Okay.
would have said that. That's not the case.
So if they bring the plane in for 20,000, what's the other 40 for?
You've got manpower, you've got to pay people, the classroom part of it.
I guess the
I
question.
can get you details on that, Joe, if you'd like.
I guess the question would be, because I know you're a fan of trying to consolidate expenses that are in different areas, and trying to show them all associated with that department. Well, you did that with all the with benefits,
No
right?
kidding.
I'm being sincere here. The question I guess I would have, this brings up, because you have the 300,000 as an operating expense under the fire. I guess, would that not be something that needs to go one place or the other? Because it seems like when we think that the cost of the airport, it says 300. It doesn't necessarily say that 300 is for salaries only under volunteer fire. So should there not be a category somewhere else where this 300 either goes to the airport and is in the airport's budget for fire, as opposed to putting it under volunteer?
I think, John, that it should be reflected in the airport's budget, yes.
Different breakdown.
So maybe we should amend this to put this 300,000, take it out of the volunteer fire operating expense and throw it into the airport? How much is that gonna mess you up?
We can't amend it.
It's not.
No, I'm saying it's a suggestion.
It's not in there.
Because it'll go back to the executive branch, and then they will make the adjustments.
Well, if it goes inside the airport budget, you still have to have the revenue side coming in. And that's the reason originally that we put it
Oh.
into volunteer fire, because it's an appropriation from the general fund to the airport. That's the reason we've done it that way. Now, we can handle it differently. I mean, we could take that $300,000 and put it on the revenue side in intergovernmental transfers and send it into the airport and have that as a line item in the airport budget, if you want to do that.
I think it would be nice to be able to look at one look in one place and say, this is what's it's cost us for fire service at the
Yeah,
airport?
I don't disagree with that.
Unless Mark would want to consider that a loan instead of a,
If you recall, at the point in time that we turned the budget in, we were in a state, in a very fluid state with regard to fire service as a whole.
That's right.
So we put it where we put it in order to ensure that it was incorporated into the budget. But I can make that change if you think, if you're more comfortable with that, that's not a problem.
yeah, it might help us get a better idea of it.
That's fine.
Since you already have the ARF training there, it makes sense.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Any other questions on there? Did you have any, oh, yeah. Any other questions?
Maybe I'll just stay up here.
Get a chair. We have to get
I like
you a stool. Anything else on airport? Electrical board? Local management board? Recreation and parks?
Got one. I know they were in, maybe Weston can address this, about some equipment. What equipment is being bought? I know they mentioned the stump grinder and the cost of that.
I got a list.
Similar with the mosquito control, I was pulling up. If you bear with me 1 second. Okay, for equipments, requesting to be purchased for parks. They're proposing, purchasing replacing a 2005 Toro Z Master mower that currently has 2,700 hours for an estimated cost of $11,000. They are proposing replacing a 2006 Z Master mower with 2,810 hours at the same estimated cost of $11,000, and propose replacing a 1999 Kubota with 2,891 hours, same estimated cost of $11,000. So I'm guessing they plan to replace the three of those with the same model. They propose new equipment in a $9,000 for a stump grinder.
That's the one I was looking for.
Okay, and
That's the one we don't need. I know it sounds good. Hey, we'll go get the stump grinder, let's get rid of this, but in my 60-some years of being around equipment,
Yes.
it's one of the most dangerous, the most highly maintenance piece of equipment anybody could buy. You're way ahead of the game to hire them done.
okay.
So I just, I think that's, personally, I think we should take that.
Okay.
They scare me.
Okay, and the last item, just for totaling it all, they're proposing $11,000 for a backhoe attachment.
They're handed in. But
Thank
it's
you.
just, you know, it's nothing to do with just wanting to cut the budget. I'm just telling you from experience, that's one of the
Understood.
worst pieces of, dangerous for one thing. And it takes people that knows what they're doing to run it, not necessarily as far as safety goes, but as far as keeping the equipment maintained, keeping the blade sharp. It's pretty touchy, so.
Let me ask you, I mean, you may know this. So roads, do they have a stump grinder that they use when they cut stuff?
I don't think so. In most cases, when we do maintenance on our dams,
Yeah.
we'll cut it flush with the ground, knowing that we're gonna have to come back at some point when that is rotted out
Okay.
and make a repair then.
Okay.
So we've been avoiding it. Solid waste, when we expand our borrow pit area or as we prep for a new cell, we'll just use our excavator to pull it out.
And just to clear up, this is different than our tub grinder.
correct.
This is a
Yeah.
stump, this
No,
is
yeah,
a
no, yeah,
piece of
I'm-
equipment you pull behind to pick up and back up to a stump that's in the ground. Our tub grinder,
No, no,
you know, is something you put stuff in.
yeah, but I was thinking when they were doing, cutting trees alongside the road, that, they had to do something with the stumps.
Yeah,
there.
but
Just wondered.
roads typically cuts it flush with the ground.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Any other questions for Rec and Parks?
Yes, what is, I can't see when I take this off. What is the, NH unanticipated expense for $10,000?
Where are you?
Where are you on that, Larry?
What page would that be?
19.
It says page 19.
Is that,
Let me get you an answer on that, Larry, off the top of my head, I don't know.
Okay, I'll write that down.
as I raised during our session, I kind of have some issues with the $15,000 for contracted out maintenance and repair projects. So, put that on the list to consider.
What did you say it was, Mark?
15,000 for the maintenance, the contracted out costs for maintenance and repair when they're doing the softball tournaments, they contract, since so many employees, county employees are working on the tournament, contracting out to do the work
Okay.
that should be done. So,
Okay.
Wayne, you mentioned we had about 600 employees. We have a lot of
600
part-time.
full-time.
Full-time, right, and that's where I was going. How many part-time employees do we have? Because it looks like Rex and Parks has a lot.
It's seasonal, Larry.
Right.
It's going to fluctuate. At the high point, our employment probably goes up close to 800.
So you're talking about maybe 200 part-time
It
employees.
fluctuates, again, through the season.
I did hear that one other time. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Rec and Parks? Okay. Next item is Civic Center. Wayne, you want to sit over here? Join us. Any questions from anyone on the Civic Center?
With all these beer sales we've been having, shouldn't we be able to lower this, lower the budget on the Civic Center some? All this additional revenue?
After we get hockey.
Yeah, really? Okay. I understand the beer sales have been a little disappointing.
The beer sales, the real reason behind getting the license wasn't so much to derive per capita income from the existing base. It was to attract business that we could not otherwise attract, like a hockey team. So,
What are some of the other venues that would not come here because we didn't sell beer?
you would have a lot of concerts, a lot of acts would not come without alcohol.
That's first I've heard that, but it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, don't ask me to explain.
Is that, they're in the
Show
market to
promoters.
sell music, not beer.
Well, their audiences like to go places where there is beer. The person who could really give you a very, very clear explanation on that would be Chuck Rousseau.
Chuck, yeah, he was here
He books
last
the
week.
business. He would be
So,
able to tell you.
how long has the Civic Center been selling alcohol?
About a year.
Not quite a year.
Yeah, I was thinking probably November maybe.
Was that concert you went to, the first concert?
Right, yeah. It was
It
right
was
before
that-
Thanksgiving.
It was that country,
So
I forget the name of the act.
have we had any more venues come because we had?
No,
beer
because that
sales?
business is booked well in advance. I mean, these national acts, these guys are out on tour.
Right.
It's not like they book a month in advance, they book a good year in advance.
I mean, they've done that, but that's because they've been in the area and there was a need.
Correct.
Have we booked anybody for the future that requested alcohol sales?
You'd have to ask Chuck.
I didn't know if you knew, part of the discussion.
I don't get into that level of detail.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions from anyone? Okay. Unless I'm trying to take some notes here myself. Okay. I guess since you're here, Wayne, and I probably should have asked, just the concession alcohol sales and catering alcohol sales had been $250,000 and $100,000 respectively in 17, but it zeroed out in 18. Do you know why that was, maybe? I don't want to put you on the spot.
I'm not following what you're asking me, John.
In the 2017 budget, concession alcohol sales was budgeted as revenue of $250,000, and then the catering alcohol sales was budgeted for $100,000. But this year, there's no budgeting on that particular line for each, or
Yeah,
either.
no, I understand what you're
Yeah.
asking me now. I'll have to ask Pam Olin why she set it up in that fashion.
Right, or whether it's maybe put into another category
Yeah.
or something, if
Yeah,
you
let
could
me
do
ask
that.
her.
Okay,
Let
good.
me ask her.
Okay. Okay.
Is the tile down yet at the Civic Center?
Is what?
The tile that was being replaced, is that down now? I think
Yeah,
2
it's
weeks
gonna-
ago.
It's gonna be carpet.
Oh, it's gonna be carpet now?
It's gonna be
I
carpet.
remember they took up the
Yeah.
tile.
Next item is tourism. Next department is tourism. Takes a long time to shuttle through these revenue streams. Next item is grants and mandates, municipal share tax, homestead fee, SDAT office. Teen Adult Center. Maintenance of aged in the community. Life Crisis Center. Anything else for good of the order? Okay, I think we got a lot done today. Laura, did you have anything you wanted to add based on what you've helped us with before that you think maybe we should touch on again today before we meet again?
Yeah, I think you guys, everything that we've talked about, you're gonna research the law still, okay? Yeah. I think that covers everything.
Okay. I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to thank Steve for the good work that both of you did in helping the council work through this. Anything else from council as a whole? All right, I'm trying to figure out where the heck I am. Thank you, Wayne.